think you can't, think again. Meet James Jaramillo and stay with us as we give you the inside scoop on one of the most inspirational tales in all of racing. It is one of the greatest stories in all of racing and all of sports. James Jaramillo, who was injured in a motocross accident long ago, he unfortunately became a quadriplegic. He's still out here competing in his UTV. Let's meet James. Let's also dive into some of the features that allows him to operate this vehicle. What you're taking a look at, and the guy to best explain that is Mr. John Campo. John, you've done so much with this. Tell me a little bit about what we have going on here.
Well, James doesn't have a lot of upper body strength, being a quadriplegic, so we've had to come up with different ways, and he scours the internet and finds different product that we try to put together after his calculations are made to help him steer. He's got a different steering box that has adjustments on it to help him steer the car. This is his handbrake and his throttle on one side, on the left-hand side, throttle back, brake forward. And we also give him an assist to push the brake so he can actually get brakes. It works off a bell crank. It goes over to a master cylinder, and all his throttle and brake controls are in there. And then, of course, we got to pick him up and lift him in, lower the steering wheel down to his legs, latch him in. We have to actually put his hands in the components to hold him in there, strap him in, and then you see him out there on the track. And then we do it in reverse. We have to pull him back out, unstrap him. You know, he can't handle the heat, so we got to keep him cool. We got to put him back in the motorhome and do all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but he likes it and we like it. He has to have a throttle positioning switch on there so you can tell if he's getting full throttle or not, you know, just all kinds of stuff.
This is all extra charging system components that James must have in his car to help power all the different devices he has here.
All the hand control system, and it's just a whole
Well, James, thank you so much for having me in. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
On behalf of so many out there, you're so inspirational. This is such a great story. First off, if you could, give me a little bit of background. How did you get injured?
So I got injured when I was 17 with I was practicing for a motocross race. I was 17 years old. It was my senior year of high school. And went out one morning on a Saturday morning and got a little sloppy off of one of the jumps. And it was a track I've ridden a million times before. It was getting ready for a race we had the following weekend. And when I landed, I knew I shouldn't have done that when I did the jump, I knew I shouldn't have done the last jump. And then when I landed, the bike bounced side to side, and I didn't quite know what was going to happen. And so I was like, okay, I've crashed like this a million times before. It wasn't that big of a deal. But then I remember not being able to feel anything as I was rolling down a landing ramp, and I was thinking, okay, this is weird. And I laid there and it felt really empty, and it broke my C5 vertebrae in my neck. So the C5 vertebral quadriplegic is what it's called.
Thank God you're okay. Thank God you lived. And to be able to come out here more than a decade later and still race, what's that mean to you? I mean, many would think it's impossible for you to ever get behind the wheel again.
Oh, it's huge because it feels like with my life, it's one of the last pieces of the puzzle of what gave me back a lot of what I felt like was lost. And I love motocross. I tried to get into a couple other things. Nothing really stuck. When they started making the Razors and the UTVs, that came out. And instead of having to build a car from the ground up, you could work with something that's already available and then work on just building hand controls of the chassis. So little by little, I would say it says boys will be boys. We started to put a car together and it was, okay, good, now I could drive it on the weekend with some friends.
Scare me. You're scaring me.
You could never do that in your other car.
You're scaring me.
And then a year later, it's, well, maybe we could go do a works race for a little bit. And then a little bit, it just kept progressing and progressing because I've always wanted to make the car feel like it was a part of me, like the motorcycle did. And now that we're getting pretty close to that point, we're able to compete with the race series, and it's completely gives us all back what we've lost. And then having my family and friends and everything out here, it just brings that whole part of life back, and I love it. So to drive the car with my motion, I'll just scoot back so you can see.
Sure.
I have, with my injury, I got all my feeling back, but I didn't get much motion back. So I'm paralyzed from my mid chest down, and my arms work only on my biceps, but not my chest and my triceps. So I don't have a good extension. And then my hands, my wrists will move up almost like a twist throttle position. But I don't have anything in my fingers, so I can't squeeze any triggers to build the hand controls. So that's been the big project for us, because for years I was trying to just get it to where I could steer a car, and went through a hydraulic steering for a couple of years, couldn't get that one to work out how I wanted it to. Did a by wire, almost a robotic type of steering, and that it worked a lot better, but I didn't get any driving feel, so I was crashing all the time. I raced my first year doing this series with it, and I was crashing all the time. And found a company that made a really strong electronic power steering unit and put that in the car last year, and that's made a huge difference. But then with that extra speed I started to be able to run with people, we realized that my brakes weren't working as good as they should at high speed. So then that's been a whole project to try to get the throw that I could, because when I'm in my car with my hand will be right here for throttle and brake, I push forward for brake, pull backwards for gas, and all my strength is at the furthest that I could push away, but I lose about a second trying to get there. So going from brake to throttle, I lose a lot of time. So that's been the hard part, trying to get something that works easy enough and quick enough in a place that I still have strength. And we're getting closer and closer. We made an electric assist motor to help with my brake, but then now that affected the throttle, so it's back to a whole can of worms all over again.
So James, take me through a lap. Describe what it's like, what you're doing on one lap.
So on one lap, you can see my hands. My throttle and my brake is with my left hand, so it's pull back for throttle, press forward for brake. And we move my steering wheel down to my lap because that's where I have the most strength. And I made a real quick ratio for it, so it's about one full turn lock to lock. So my hand's planted right here for steering, and for throttle brake it's right here. So I'll be backwards and forwards, and then for steering I'll do about a half rotation to get to where I need to go. But then the tricky part comes in because I can't pull my roll offs, and you get mudded out real easily in these races, especially at the beginning of a race where you have a lot of the track is wet. So I have a button that's meant for a radio that runs an electronic roll-off system on my helmet that's back. When I get to full throttle, I just dab it like that with my elbow, and then saw that first turn especially, I'll probably hit that 4 or 5 times full throttle, and then just click it 3 or 4 to get clean vision. And then it's just finessing the car really like this as I'm going. And then for the radio, obviously I can't use my thumb to hit a radio button or anything else, so then my other elbow will check in with my spotter every once in a while when I need to. And that's a little trickier because on my steering with the roll-offs I can pull it back to full throttle, and anytime I get a long straightaway that I can keep the car opened up long enough, that's when I'll clean off my windshield or my face shield. But the spotter is pretty tricky, so usually they can talk to me, but I don't talk to them all that much. We watched it because we're from Vegas, so. Probably the only race car that has a hinged door. It's something that we worked pretty close with Lucas to make sure it met all their safety standards with the gussets, the right type of latching. It has a strong deadbolt mechanism, because to get me in and out of this car without a hinged door on it would be almost impossible and really not all that safe. So that's first and foremost. And then second, I worked with this company years ago, ISP, to build a seat, and it's a full containment like a NASCAR drag racing, well, not an IndyCar type seat, but it's and it holds you right in with your, I got that thing specifically measured. We were real picky about the foam and everything on it, and it holds you in like a glove, because I can't move my ab muscles or anything around, so I need to be in there really tight. I was saying I can't grab these pins is basically how I had to drive. So my wrist goes in there, and then I put my fist around here. I have a little bit of I need to make something look nicer to hold my hand up top. And it's you pull back for gas and then forward for brake. And what I was telling you about earlier, that was a new thing to try to get our braking mechanism working better. We pulled a sensor down there that we found would work with all the Polaris controls, and then built our own sleeve clevises and everything, and then put a power steering motor actually right down in line on this bell crank. And that's given me a lot more braking force. And this is the first race I've used it, and it's been having real brakes has been a huge help. And then that's able to get adjusted right up here on this steering dial. And that's latched down. And what's different the last 2 years we've been running is we were finally able to, so we have this 90-degree box and the steering shaft to that strong power steering unit motor. And what we've been able to do is finally have like a mechanical feel to the steering, so it's not just floating anymore. And you can see in my lap, that's about where my steering wheel is positioned to give me the best strength. And we have 5 different map settings on that dial, so if I have a really tight blue track, it's going to be hard to steer the sticky tires. Or a really loose track, I can choose from 1 through 5 how I need the settings to be. And then these are the buttons for my roll-off, so if I need to, that's what will activate this switch right here that plugs onto my helmet, and then it swipes the lens for me. And there's the chiller right there of the cold water that'll blow the cold air and cold water through it to get to my suit.
How much fun is this?
It's great. It's so much work to get doing it. You always forget about the fun part, but then you get in, you're driving with people, and you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is exactly what I wanted to be doing. They really just want rushing.
That's our goal. That's how he does his roll-off. So he only has that ability when he's in full throttle.
So it makes for a really busy first lap.
I bet, yeah. If you're getting roosted out there and it's nice and muddy, that's cool.
And he can't talk to us either until he uses his right elbow to activate the push to talk on his radio, so he only can be in certain position for that.
You got
during
skills.
the whole race, he can't talk to us, so he only can listen.
I know, we always say we just need to throw everybody in this car and just do time trials and see where we all end up.
These elbows, man. You got some talent in those elbows.
Remember, we had qualifying before this weekend.
So James, you are a true inspiration. I'm sure there are some detractors out there that say, hey, this is way too dangerous for somebody in your condition. What do you do when you run across those types of people? What do you say?
Say a couple different things. It's if it was something that was too dangerous and would make my quality of life a lot more difficult, I wouldn't do it. Just because for me, if I have a broken collarbone, broken wrist, I won't be able to get myself in bed at night for a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months. So we take the safety portion of it really seriously with all the fire systems, make sure the right seat and everything's in place. And there's the way that I've looked at after my injury, especially just being so close to not being able to do things that I love doing and not really being able to live the way that I love to live, it's just a decision of really how do you want to live your life, and this is what I choose to do with mine. And I choose to do the things that really bring me joy and not be worried about those, and if there's a risk to mitigate, then do it, and then maybe if something does feel too risky, then you just stay away from it entirely. But that's just a philosophy of the way that I live my life, is really what's worth doing and continuing to live life that I'd want to live.
That's very inspirational, and I know you and your team, you guys are very mindful of your safety. In fact, your crew was telling me, we're here in Arizona, it's sweltering hot. They said, you have to be careful how long you're out in the heat, because they said you do not sweat anymore.
Yeah, I don't sweat.
Tell me about that.
So that's part of the injury where I broke up in my neck. It hurts what they call your autonomic nervous system. So your heart rate doesn't regulate as well, and also your body temperature doesn't either. And so I can't shiver when I'm cold, and I can't sweat when I get too hot. So that's why I hurried up back from the race right back in the motorhome, because we put a cooling system in it that pumps ice water through your vest. And my Parker pumper air blower will pump chilled water into my helmet. And even after just as quick as our races are, right when I came back, the air was hot and the water was hot. So we came right back inside because I was starting to get a little woozy.
James, this has been awesome. I got to ask you, if there's somebody out there watching this video who thinks that they are held down or limited because of their handicap, what would you tell them?
I told them it's going to take a lot more work than how you would want to, than how you'd have done things before, maybe how someone else would do things. And just go for it as something that after you decide how much work it will be and how much effort it will be, just make the jump to make it, to do it. Because for me, like with the racing, it's opened up so many doors with friends. The engineering part of it's been fun. Talking about people about new problems has been fun, and just the journey that it took me along the way So I would say just get started and then just see where that journey takes you, and it may go a different direction than you thought, but at least just give it a shot so you know you did.
So inspirational. You hear that, guys? You can do anything. If he can, you can too. How about that, James? I really appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for showing me your program, and we hope to see you up on the podium here real soon.
Hopefully soon.
A long, hard weekend, and you come home with a 6th, your best finish ever.
Best finish ever. Couple tenths of a second off from the 5th, so.
Man, there was,
Next time.
I'll tell you, there were a lot of people that crashed out too. You were able to avoid it. How'd you avoid those wrecks?
The good thing is, the blessing in disguise is since I got stuck in the wreck yesterday, I had to start in the back. I got a new spotter, the spotter helped out, and since I was able to start in the back and not in the mix of it, I was able to kind of be patient and then just cruise at my own pace and then work my way up through the cautions and got with everybody.
Congratulations, man. A few more spots, you'll be on that podium. You guys have a safe trip home.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Please join us in congratulating James for all he's done. And please make sure to subscribe and share this with a friend. Let's keep it growing. We'll keep bringing you awesome stories like this. Thanks so much for watching.